Welcome to my 208th video on my work with OO gauge. This part will deal with my efforts to get a Jinty tank engine, a Fowler 3F, running on my Hornby Dublo 3-rail tracks. Recently I've become very interested in working with Hornby Dublo 3-rail railway models, but I also maintain my interest in modelling LMS operations before the Second World War, when my grandfather concluded his railway career as a driver with the LMS. And since not a lot in the way of pre-war LMS locomotives is available as 3-rail Hornby Dublo off the shelf, as it were, I've been trying to add to my stock by converting 2-rail models of some of the principal LMS locos of the period to run 3-rail. See my previous videos on converting a Hornby Black 5, an Airfix Duck 6, and a mainline Jubilee. I've mentioned before that one loco I'd really like to have for my 3-rail railway is a Jinty, a Fowler 3F tank engine. Perhaps no type of loco was more common on the pre-war LMS than this little workhorse. But it was a bit of a tricky ask. The only 00060 tank engine made was the Southern R1, quite similar to the Jinty, but that was only 2-rail, never released in a 3-rail version. One obvious possible candidate would be the early Triang version of the Jinty. This was quite a sturdy little model produced back almost in the Hornby Dublo days, and they're not hard to come by. But the drive gear for the Triang Jinty protrudes through the centre of the base plate, as seen here, making any potential effort to fit centre rail pickups particularly tricky. I came to the conclusion that the old Hornby version of the Jinty, produced after Triang absorbed Hornby, would be a more likely candidate, and I bought this one at a recent train sale with this idea specifically in mind. The Hornby model also has a drive gear protruding through the base plate, and it's even larger than the drive gear on the Triang version. But it is at the front of the loco, leaving quite a length of base plate behind the drive gear, where a centre rail pickup might potentially be installed. I had a couple of ideas as to what I might perhaps use to pick up power from the centre rail for this model. One idea was these two individual Trix pickups, which I'd removed from a Trix brake van originally fitted with an interior light. These were self-contained units that could certainly function as sprung centre rail pickups, but it rather appeared that they would be too large to work with the Hornby Jinty, and also fitting them to the base plate would be tricky. Another possibility was to use a Marklin skate-type pickup. Here you can see the skate pickup on a Marklin 060 loco that I picked up. This loco did run, but it was intended to work with AC power using a rather complicated mechanical reversing system. It was also a rather strange, dumpy little tank engine, perhaps modelled on a Continental original of some sort, but not looking terribly like any real-world loco. The skate pickup was held on to the bottom of the Marklin loco by a single small screw in the middle. It then passed power into the loco via folded-over contacts that pressed against a contact plate on the loco, as seen here. I wasn't initially at all clear as to how the Hornby Jinty model came apart. I removed all of the screws on the bottom, but that didn't achieve anything. The chassis still wouldn't come out of the body, and the base plate still wouldn't come off. I realized that the chassis was held into the body simply by plastic clips with no screws involved. Two protrusions on the front of the chassis hooked into holes at the front of the body, and then a flexible plastic clip on the back of the chassis fitted into a slot on the back of the body. The body could be removed by pressing in the clip from the slot at the back and then hinging out the back of the chassis. The rear retaining clip on the chassis is seen at left here. Pickup from the wheels on the left side goes directly to the chassis, as those wheels are not insulated. That power is then supplied to the left brush via the left arm of the spring clip, which is not insulated, and so connects the magnet frame, which is connected to the chassis, directly to the brush. Power on the right side is picked up from the tyres of insulated wheels via wiper pickups. This power is then passed by the green wires to one side of the suppressing capacitor. The power is then passed on by the red wire to the right brush. The right arm of the spring clip has an insulating sleeve, so that brush is not connected to the chassis. I could rewire this arrangement to work with 3-rail, but first I needed some way to mount a centre rail pickup. I measured the diameter of the small retaining screw that came with the Marklin skate pickup. As you can see, it was 1.86 millimeters. I used a 1.6 millimeter bit in a pin vise to drill a suitably placed hole in the plastic base plate of the Jinty model. Then I screwed the Marklin screw into that hole. I was hoping that the Marklin screw would be short enough that it would screw into the plastic base plate and not make contact with the metal of the chassis. I used a multimeter to check continuity. There was no continuity between the Marklin screw and any of the metal parts of the model, which was exactly what I wanted. I attached the Marklin skate pickup to the base of the model using its original screw screwed into the hole that I had drilled in the base plate. This wasn't the most robust of arrangements, but I hoped that it might work out. I took the skate pickup off again and soldered the end of a piece of thin black wire to one of the folded-over contacts. Then I reattached the skate pickup to the base plate and ran the black wire up the side of the chassis between the wheels. I moved the contact on the end of the red wire over to the non-insulated side of the brush retaining clip, so now pickup from the wheels on both sides of the loco was going to that brush. Then I inserted the stripped end of my black wire from the skate pickup between the insulating sleeve on the other arm of the brush retaining clip and the brush on that side, so connecting the skate pickup to that brush. I tried the chassis on the 3-rail track, but it didn't run. When I applied power, nothing happened. I wasn't sure at first, but it turned out that this was because the skate pickup simply wasn't far enough down to make contact with the Dublo centre rail. Now that could have been the end of this experiment, except the skate pickup proved fairly easy to adjust. It was possible to simply use tweezers to bend down the springs connecting the skate itself to the top piece, so making the skate ride lower. With that done, I was able to get the chassis to run on my Dublo 3-rail track. So here's this old RO52 Hornby Jinty chassis to which I fitted a Marlin skate. Well, point one is it goes backwards because I just left the insulating sleeve on the yes, that's one point, is it goes backwards. The other point is it tends to get stuck on points because the Marlin skate doesn't manage to keep contact with the third rail across the points very well. He almost stopped on that point, and he probably will stop on this point. Well, he managed to stagger over it, but... And I've got the power on backwards, although he's going forwards now, because I connected the skate to the arm of the spring that had the insulating arm on, and it turns out that was the wrong way around, and now it's stuck on the pointing. And it's just because the skate is not making great contact. Famous last words. Let's give it a little push, but I don't want to derail it. That's about 50% power. Give it a little bit more power to get it over there. Okay. So, well, it's going backwards, and it's not going very well, but it is sort of going. So my next step was to switch the contacts round so that the chassis would run forward when the controller was set to forward. I suppose this wasn't actually vital, but it's just much more convenient to have all models consistent so they run forward when the controller is set to forward. I used a clip to hold the brushes whilst I was working on this, the pink thing here, as if these brushes come out of the slots in which they pivot, it's a real pain in the behind to fit them back through again. Having clipped the insulated side, I removed the clip arm from the brush on the other side. The red wire from the wheel pickups had been connected to this. I separated the end of the red wire from the wheel pickups and then refitted the end of the retaining spring clip to that brush. Then I turned the chassis round and moved the clip over to clip the brush from which I'd just removed the red wire. Now I took the insulating sleeve off the spring clip and refitted the spring clip to the brush. I turned the chassis round again, clipped the far brush, and fitted the insulating sleeve onto the near arm of the spring clip, the one that wasn't insulated before. Then I fitted the contact on the end of the red wire from the wheel pickups in with the brush on the newly uninsulated spring arm. I needed to fit my black wire from the skate pickup in contact with the brush on the insulated side of the spring clip. I thought it would be best to fit some kind of contact piece to the end of the wire, as was done with the red wire from the wheel pickups. I got out some phosphor bronze strip for this purpose. I cut a small piece of bronze strip, but it turned out that I should have made it even smaller. I bent the piece of bronze strip in a way that I hoped would allow me to fit it in contact with the brush. Then I soldered the end of my black wire from the skate pickup to my bronze contact piece. I clipped the brush on the other side and inserted my contact piece in with the brush on the insulated side of the retaining clip, which was the side that wasn't insulated before, so I'd swapped over the contacts to the opposite sides in order to change the running direction of the chassis. I got the chassis back onto my 3-rail tracks for testing.
Well, it now goes forwards when it should go forwards and backwards when it should go backwards, but it's still very prone to sticking on the points. See, it's going at 60% power now, and that's about the lowest power I can keep it going over the points. I mean, it can go lower than that, but then it'll stop on the points, because it just won't maintain continuity over the points. Part of the problem is that the points tend to get dirtier than anything else, precisely because there's sparking on them, because continuity is not well maintained. The sparking itself causes whatever oxidization, corrosion, which makes the points dirtier. So the points get dirtier than any other type of track and need aggressive cleaning more often. See, I just slowed him down to 50% and he's barely getting over the point there. He sort of stopped and then started again. And he stopped on that point, see. He can't quite get over the points at 50%. It's annoying. I've tried to clean the points. It's just I think it's the centre rail contacts. Well, I'm not 100% sure. Might be the wheels, but I think it's more the centre rail contacts. Yes, he stopped on that one as well, not much to my surprise. Let me just have a go at cleaning its outer rail. Oh, now he's gone and stopped on that one, you see. So he says, well, I mean, what can I do? Oops. I can try not to have the thing collide with me. Nope, he stopped on that one again. See, he just won't get over the blithering points. I don't know what to do. He just will not get over the blithering points. He got over that one that time at 50%. Yeah, just can't seem to get him over this point. Oh, now he's stopped on the other one. It's really hard to effectively enough clean these points. Oh, he's actually derailed now rather than just stopping. I don't know.
Well, I did manage to somewhat improve the running of the chassis. Apart from thoroughly cleaning the points, which, as I said whilst running, tend to get dirty more quickly than any other part of the track, I also adjusted the skate pickup on the chassis to ride with more level pressure on front and back, and I thoroughly cleaned the skate itself with electrical contact cleaner. Next, I refitted the body. and the model wouldn't run at all. I had quite a time persuading it to run with the body fitted. The body is entirely made of plastic, so I knew that the body itself couldn't be shorting anything out, so I was a bit mystified as to what the problem was. It turned out that the compression when the body was fully clipped on was pushing down onto the top of the brush contacts and making the brush on the insulated side short to the chassis. To fix this, I had to make the contact piece on the end of my black wire smaller than it was before, and to fit it well down into the brush slot, so there was nothing sticking up for the body to bear down on. I did eventually persuade the model to run with the body fitted.
Well, I had major struggles persuading the thing to work with the body on, because it kept short-circuiting when I put the body on. It's all rather delicate how the brushes connect and everything. We keep trying, and we get it across the point there. That point still makes nasty noises. That's the nastiest point on the layout, that one that branches to the thing. Ooh, see, I saw a spark there. Why is it sparking there? However, it is running. That's about 58%. There's some sort of spark as it goes over that point. I do wish it wouldn't do that, but oh well, that's as far as I can get so far. I mean, famous last words. I had it running, but then it stopped there. There's something obviously not quite right about that point. Can I get over it? Yeah, I got over it that time. I don't know. Oh, I really have to look and see what I can do. And he does go backwards as well. I'm going to try and take him all the way around backwards. Maybe we will. Let's see if we can get over that and whatever. So there we go. Well, I mean, we have sort of, according to the meaning of the act, persuaded a Jinty to run 3-rail. Although I'm not very confident in him, but he's running at the moment. So let's see if the little Jinty can actually pull anything. No promises, because he's not exactly what you'd call a powerful runner, but I've coupled him up to a couple of Airfix non-corridor coaches. Now, he's got tension lock couplings, broad, old type tension lock couplings molded right into his base plate. The Jinty, as you may have noticed when I was working on him, they're just molded right in, so changing the couplings on him would be extremely difficult. I mean, there's no simple way of changing them. You'd have to hack off the tension lock ones and then drill and put something else on, and I don't particularly want to do it, so I'm just coupling him up to a couple of Airfix tension lock coaches with a tension lock coupling. And indeed, even then I had to change the coupling on the front coach, because the original one that came on it was, for me, when I bought it, was too small to couple to him. Okay, now these are 57-foot coaches, true scale 57-foot coaches, so they should just about get through the tunnel. Okay. Give him a little bit of extra power there, try and get him over that point, because he is prone to sticking on the points. We sort of know that, and that, oh dear, that point is bumpy. Oh dear, I'm going to have to replace that point. I think eventually I've worked on it to try and make it non-bumpy. But, well, so he's pulling those coaches, because now, I mean, these are modern coaches with pinpoint bearings and everything. Okay. Now let's just do a little other experiment here. Okay, we'll take him around the back. Nearly got him stuck on the point there. We'll take him round the back and we'll change the points a minute. Ooh, that point's coming undone. That's not good. I'm lucky we didn't derail on it. If you're not careful, that can happen. You need to make sure the levers are pushed all the way down with those. Now, what I'm going to do is change the point to pass some power into the station, and I'm going to try and see if I can bring the Black 5 with its train out of the station. Okay, can we do that? Oh, it's moving. This is the Hornby Black 5 DCC ready that I converted to 3-rail by rewiring the backing plate and then the plate for the DCC, the mounting plate for the DCC. I just rewired that and coupled it up to a 8F tender, suitably rebadged. Okay, so now we'll change these points again to isolate the Black 5, and then we'll see if we can bring the Jinty and its train into the station. No guarantees that'll work, but we can try. If he doesn't derail on that point. He stopped on that point. Not much to my surprise. This is tricky because I've got to try and keep him. Oh, go on. I don't know, I can't seem to get him to move. Why not? Oh, I think he's derailed. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think he derailed. That's what the problem is. He's derailed. So let me see if is he re-railed now? It's very hard because I only have 2 hands. Whoa, and there he goes into the station and try and not crash him into the buffers. Yeah, I derailed him going over. Oh, and I've derailed one of the coaches now, I think. Ooh, yes. It's not easy going over these points and things. But anyway, there we go. Famous last words. So I've sort of got a Jinty running for 3-rail, and it could even tow a couple of coaches, sort of, although you have to be a little bit careful with it. Okay, the problems going into the station there weren't really the fault of the Jinty. The problem was that the front coach that I had there still had a narrow coupling on it. I changed the coupling, but it was still quite narrow, nowhere near as wide as the wide coupling on the back of the Jinty. And going over these points there where you've got to turn first one way then the other way with fairly tight curves, the coupling was locking up and so derailing either the loco or the coach. So I've changed the coach now. That's a different coach. Same type of coach, Airfix 57-foot composite, but it's got large, wide coupling, tension lock couplings on both the front and the back. So let's see if we can make this setup behave. Oh dear. I'm having trouble getting over that point, but that's the continuity problem over the point. Okay, let's just stop there a minute then, and let's change the point to go into the station and see if we can manage to draw the train into the station over the points without buggering up. Yes, well, the engine, of course, because it's at the front there, is nearly hitting the buffers, but there we go. So he does work better with that. But this is, you know, a problem with trying to run tension lock couplings on the Dublo track, which they're not really designed for, and incompatibility between different types of tension lock couplings. But anyway, I do have a sort of, not perfect, but a sort of functioning Jinty now for 3-rail operation.